So this is the first video going over the 4.4 to 4.6 test review. The first problem is a factoring problem. Solve the equation by factoring completely. When you're factoring with 4 terms, you're going to want to split after the second term. Assuming that the 4 terms don't have anything in common, these 4 terms do not have anything in common. This first group, they have x squared in common. X cubed, take x squared out, you're left with x. Negative 2x squared, you take the x squared out, you're left with negative 2. The third term has a negative in front of it, so you want to use the negative. 36x and 72 have 36 in common. Negative 36x divided by negative 36 is positive x. 72 divided by negative 36 is negative 2. So the factored form is x squared minus 36 times x minus 2. Now this is not factored completely because x squared minus 36 is a difference of 2 squares. The square root of x squared is x, the square root of 36 is 6, so that factors into x plus 6, x minus 6, and then we have the x minus 2 equals 0. Your last step here is to solve. So if x plus 6 has to equal 0, then x is going to equal negative 6. If x minus 6 has to equal 0, then x will equal positive 6, because 6 minus 6 would be 0. If x minus 2 has to equal 0, 2 minus 2 would be 0. So our solutions are negative 6, positive 6, and 2. So in these fields, we're going to type in negative 6, and you can type that in your keyboard, minus sign 6, or you can use this keypad here. This is positive 6, so you can just type 6 in. And then the next one is positive 2. Now the order that you type these in does not matter. It's going to grade these as a group, so as long as you have negative 6 in one of those fields, positive 6 in one of them, and 2 in one of them, you should get that answer correct. Solve the equation by factoring completely. I see a 3 and an x cubed. That's telling me that we probably need to factor out a greatest common factor. This x at the end should also be a clue that you need to try to factor something out. I think we can divide 3, 9, and 84 by 3. So we're going to factor out 3x from all of these. That means we're basically dividing each of these terms by 3x. Okay, so 3x cubed, take the 3 out, take one of the x's out, you'd be left with x squared. 9 divided by 3 is 3. X squared, take one of the x's out, you're left with x. Negative 84 divided by 3 is negative 28, and we're taking the x out. Now we want to factor the trinomial. We're looking for two numbers that multiply to give us negative 28. Those same numbers have to add up to 3. So what I typically do is think about ways that you can multiply to get 28. You can do 1 times 28, you can do 2 times 14. If you try 28 divided by 3, you get a decimal, so that doesn't work. 28 divided by 4 is 7. And I think if we do negative 4 and positive 7, that's going to give us these things. So negative 4 times 7 is negative 28. Negative 4 plus 7 is 3. So the factored form there is x minus 4, x plus 7. We've got the 3x from before, and this whole thing equals 0. For the x minus 4, our solution would be positive 4. For the x plus 7, our solution would be negative 7. And the monomial in front gives us an x value of 0, because 3 times 0 would be 0. So in these 3 fields, as long as you have 0 in one of them, 4 in one of them, and negative 7, and again, you can push the minus button on your keyboard, or you can use this to help you, so negative 7. Again, solve by factoring completely. This time it's not equal 0, so our first step is going to be to get this equation to be equal 0, and we do that by subtracting 40x cubed on both sides. But what's important to note is that you need to put that negative 40x cubed in between the two terms that you already have. You want your exponents to decrease as you read from left to right. So now we have 2x to the fifth minus 40x to the third plus 128x. We need to factor out the greatest common factor. It'd be really helpful if we could divide everything by 2, and I think we can, and we need to divide everything by an x. So we're dividing everything by 2x. We're factoring that 2x out. 2x to the fifth divided by 2x, we'd be left with x to the fourth. Negative 40 divided by 2 is negative 20. We're taking one of the x's out, so we'd still have x squared. 128 divided by 2 is 64, and we're taking the x out. We need to factor the trinomial. We're looking for two numbers that multiply to give us 64 and add up to negative 20. Excuse me. Ways to multiply to get 64. We got 1 times 64. We've got 2 times 32. If I try 64 divided by 3, I get a decimal. 64 divided by 4 is 16. 64 divided by 6 is a decimal. 64 divided by 7 is a decimal. 64 divided by 8 is 8. Now, ways to get 20. If we had negative 4 and negative 16, that would get us negative 20, and negative 4 times negative 16 is positive 64. Now, normally we would do x minus 4, x minus 16, but the thing that you need to remember here is that this is x to the fourth. X times x is not going to give us x to the fourth. X squared times x squared will give us x to the fourth. So if you're starting with x to the fourth and your middle term is x squared, don't forget that whatever exponent your middle term has on it, that's the exponent that you need to have in your factored form. Okay, we still have 2x in front of all of this, and it still is equal 0. These are not fully factored. These are both difference of two squares. So we got 2x in front, we've got x plus 2, x minus 2, and we've got x plus 4, x minus 4. All of that equals 0. So I'm going to highlight this to help you. The x squared minus 4 factored into these two, and the x squared minus 16 factored into those two. Now, all of our solutions. This first part, we've got x equals 0. That's from the 2x. From these two, we've got x equals negative 2 and positive 2. And from these two, we've got x equals negative 4 and positive 4. So on your answers in EdSite, there's this grid with a whole bunch of answer choices. You have to click each one. So 0 is a solution, negative 2 and positive 2, negative 4 and positive 4. This question is actually linked with another question. It's finding the number, the number and the type of solutions. So the number of solutions comes from the degree. So the largest exponent is going to give you the number of solutions. And to make this problem work for you, you really need to be in Chrome, and you need to use your mouse. You can't really drag with your finger. It doesn't work very well. So your mouse or your mouse pad. So we're going to click on the 4 and drag that. It's going to have 4 solutions. For positive and negative solutions, you need to look at the number of times that the sign changes. So this first term is positive. We always start positive. This next term is negative. That's a change. That changes from positive to negative. The next term is positive. Again, that's a change. We were negative. Now we just changed to positive. And this next term is negative. That again is a change. But then we stay negative for the last term. So there are 3 sign changes. That means there's going to be 3 or 1 positive solutions. Descartes' rule of signs always says the number of sign changes or less by 2. So if it's 3, it's going to be 3 or 1. If it's 2, it's going to be 2 or 0. If it's 4, it's going to be 4 or 2 or 0. So basically, don't put a single number in this blank. If you put a single number in this blank, it's going to be wrong. Your answer is 3 or 1. Okay, now if there's 3 possible positive solutions and there has to be 4 total, that means there's going to be 1 negative solution because the larger number of the positives and the negatives have to add up to that 4. So we're going to have 1 negative solution. And that's it for that problem. Now on your test, these questions are going to come at you in a different order. So writing this down, like see what I have written down right now, writing this down and then maybe saving the rest of that piece of paper might be helpful for you. If you're working on this in class, you'll have a paper copy and you'll be able to see your work for this up above. But you may want to keep this for when you get to this problem, because see this x to the fourth minus x to the third plus 7x squared minus 9x minus 18, it's the same problem. So this is like the continuation of that previous problem. All right, so we need to find all of the zeros. The possible suspects, the possible solutions come from this last number, the 18. So 18 is going to tell us what our possible solutions are. We've got 1 times 18, we've got 2 times 9, we've got 3 times 6. Is that it for 18? I think that's it for 18. So we can use positive 1 or negative 1, positive 2 or negative 2, positive 3 or negative 3, and so on. I would not test the bigger numbers. I would always start with the smaller numbers to test. You are guaranteed positive and negative solutions, and since I'm guaranteed like potentially 3 positive solutions, but definitely 1 positive solution, I prefer to test the positives if I can. So I'm going to start by testing positive 1, and then positive 2, and if I have to, positive 3, and then we'll see where we're at. When you're testing, you're using synthetic division. So we are doing 1x to the fourth, negative 1x to the third, 7x squared, negative 9x, and negative 18. You're taking the coefficients in front of each of those terms. I'm going to test positive 1 first. Multiply, 1 times 1 is 1. Add these to get 0. 1 times 0 is 0. Add these to get 7. 1 times 7 is 7. Add them to get negative 2. 1 times negative 2 is negative 2. I honestly don't care what this number is. I just know that it is not 0, and that means that 1 did not work. So I'm going to test again using 2. 1, negative 1, 7, negative 9, negative 18. 2 times 1 is 2. Add them. 2 times 1 is 2. Add them. 9 times 2 is 18. Add them. 2 times 9 is 18. That gets me the 0. All right, so I know that 2 is a solution. So right now you can go over here and click on 2. I know that 2 is a solution. That means that x minus 2 is in the factored form, and this stuff is going to give us the rest. So that's going to be x to the third. We started with x to the fourth. We just took an x out, so x to the third plus x squared plus 9x plus 9. Now that looks beautiful for factor by grouping. The first two have x squared in common. That's x plus 1. The next two have 9 in common, x plus 1. So our fully factored form is 0 equals x minus 2, that's from our first solution that we found, x squared plus 9, and x plus 1. All right, x minus 2, that's going to give us a solution of 2. X plus 1, that's going to give us a solution of negative 1. X squared plus 9. We need to put x squared plus 9 equal to 0. Subtract 9 on both sides. When you square root this, you have to put a plus minus in front of it. The square root of 9 is the square root of 9, the square root of negative 9 is the square root of 9 times the square root of negative 1. The square root of 9 is 3. The square root of negative 1 is I. So we've got positive or negative 3i. And you'll notice in these answer choices, you've got a negative 3i and a positive 3i. So there should be 4 solutions. There's all 4 of our solutions. That means that we are definitely done with that problem. This is going to be the end of the first video. To do the rest of the test, check out the next video.